Stuart War, and a warm welcome to Charles Tarbey from Century 21, who joins us now to give us an update on the latest property statistics. Charles, a warm welcome to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I looked over there and I thought Chris had had a hair transplant and looked a lot younger, so I didn't realise that, he was away.
He's in Byron Bay. This guy's got an incredible life.
He has. He must be enjoying himself. Results. Clearance rates are actually quite steady when you look at it, Dan. 67.8% this week across the nation. Last week was just on 66%, so it's just sitting there on the edge. Last year it was 72.5%, and each week it's actually been performing less than it was, or worse than it was this time last year. So it's not as great as people are thinking out there, and we've been watching that decline for a little while. Certainly some pockets are doing very well. Sydney is sitting at 71.9%, Melbourne came in at 70%, and Brisbane came in at 48.8%. For Brisbane, that's great because it's been in that mid-range for a little while.
He's a man who knows his numbers. What about homes advertised for sale?
Well, that increased by 1.97%. Now, that's 5 weeks in a row, which is great. So, and that's what we needed to see probably a few weeks ago. We're seeing it a little bit late. New Zealand caught a glimpse of it last week. They had a massive influx of stock, but it's actually back down again this week. Auckland performing a little bit less than it should be, but still overall there isn't really enough stock to meet the demand in the general areas, but it's the specific areas you're hearing about that are causing all of the chaos about price, overpricing of properties.
Residential rent price movements.
They've been steady for a long time. Sydney from this time last year, or 2 years ago when I first started the chart, 11.72% increase. So it's been steady. It's been sitting in the mid-12s all the way along on the three averages of the capital city, mid-12s to 13s. Melbourne was 8.24% and Perth was 19.37%. It gave us an average of 13.11% increase over the last 2 years.
Residential vacancy rates.
Yes, same sort of thing. A bit strange in one part of that, but the best performing capital city was Sydney at 2.37% vacancy rate. Melbourne's been very good at 2.69%. That's been performing better than normal, but Perth jumped in at 7.02%. Never seen it that high in the last 2 years of keeping the records, but the average for those three capital cities is 4.03%, but Perth has been on the climb for some time now.
Okay, very interesting. Now, a question for you both. As we head towards Christmas, coming towards the latter part of the year, we know there are different markets across the country, but how are buyers behaving and how are sellers behaving? What would be the normal trend, Tom?
I think that what we're seeing this time around is, and Charles's numbers validate what I'm about to say, we're seeing listings grow every week. We're going to see November, December, a large amount of stock on the market. That means that if you're a buyer, you now are able to buy with more choice. If you're a seller, you've got less buyers to pick from because your home's now on the market in competition, not in isolation like it has been in the last few months. So I think people that are watching this show now that have been thinking about buying and have been thinking it's too expensive, I'd get out November, December and start looking and comparing, because, Charles, they may get some good buys in December.
They will, but you've got the RBA macro-prudential tools they're talking about, but they're already in place, in my view. The banks have already been involved in responsible lending. They conducted an LVR ratio of 80-20 in Auckland for first home buyers, and that almost destroyed that marketplace. So I think the involvement of the RBA, talking about investors, changing the rules there, that coupled with more stock, the RBA talking about the possible interest rate movement next year, I think a lot of people are just going to sit back for a while, and I particularly, I know it sounds strange, but as a real estate agent, I particularly like that view. I prefer the more stable view than the crazy market we get in some parts of Australia.
That was a really interesting tone, I guess, that ran through this week as well. What would the impact of a premature rate rise have on the property market?
If you look at the rate rises compared to many years ago when the interest rates might have been 9 or 10%, if they'd go up 0.25% here or there, or over a year 1%, people could manage it. But when you're sitting at 5 1/4 and it goes up 1%, that is a significant increase. And I think people really need to be on their toes and be prepared for something like that.
Well, as always, really appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thanks so much for speaking with us on Your Property Empire. Well, Chris Gray will be back in the seat next week, so make sure you tune in. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dan Murphy.
The information